go out there and somehow find him. So I went out there on my own.
And what age would this
was
be
after
about?
the festival. This was probably a few months after. And I went out there and with the express purpose of finding him. I went to Bobby Kester's Jazz Record Mart on 7 West Grand Street in Chicago. And I went in there, and I believe it was Bruce Iglauer, what's his name? Some of the guys that started Living Blues magazine.
Yeah, right.
The staff at that time, and then I had asked them, I said, how can I find Magic Sam? And I said, oh, he's in Cook County Hospital. I said, really? I said, what happened? I said, well, he had a stroke. And I said, well, how can I find him? And, they said, why don't you just go over there? So I believe I took a bus there, and I looked up. I knew how his name was spelled, of course, because I'd seen him in Ann Arbor, and I went out and found him on a ward. I went to the desk, and they said he's on whatever ward it was on the floor, and I found him among a myriad of beds, and he was in one of them. And I saw the little card. He was asleep, and I went over there, and I just sort of stood there, and he must have seen me out of the corner of his eye, and he said, who are you? And I said, well, my name's Robert Buon, I wasn't using my family middle name, which was RADCLIFF at that time, as a stage name. So he said, well, why'd you come? Where are you from? I said, well, from Washington, D.C. He said, you came all this way before? And I said, well, I came to find you. And he said, well, I'm a little ill here, but if you'd like, here's my phone number, and you can maybe come visit me and my family. And being a young guy who was pretty... I don't know whether it was a combination of just youthful exuberance or craziness, but I ended up calling him later on, I think some month or so later maybe, and I went out there, and they let me stay at his place. I mean, they had a little room on the side, and I guess it was some sort of Castro convertible, and they let me sleep on it, and they had sheets and stuff, and it was in their little den.
What part of town was that?
He was on the west side. It was the exact address was 1615 South Harding Street. It was on the west side. It ran sort of Pulaski was sort of adjacent to let's see, it was South Harding, then there was Pulaski, and if you follow them all over, you go over to this is in the heart of the west side. Roosevelt Road was a little farther down on the other way, which was where the Alex Club was. So he would take me to the Alex Club, and I would often go with him and Mac Thompson.
Are you sure?
Yeah. And they would stick me down like this, kind of hunched down low, because at the time the Klan on the Chicago police force apparently was very large in number, and if black drivers were found with some white kid, it was the white kid who did not get charged. It was the black people who were driving you, because they would say you kidnapped this kid. So they kept me down like that until we got to the club, and then I went in with them, the Alex Club, and Boss was the name of the guy that ran the place. I don't know what his real whole name was, but him and Sam and Mac said, listen, could you watch Robert here? With me, and they make sure that nobody bothers him, and that we'll be with him, but we vouch for him. He's with us. So I sat with Leola, who was Sam's common-law wife, and Mac Thompson and Mac's wife. Mighty Joe was playing a little bit, but it was mostly Otis too. And then Sam got up and played with Otis's band for a bit. Yeah, it was a pretty amazing night. I remember it was sort of my first real indoctrination in the Chicago Blues Club. And I remember being really freaked out with Otis that night, because Otis was playing, I thought he was playing slide. And of course it wasn't. It was Otis doing his, where he could sound like Robert Nighthawk, or he could sound like
finger style, yeah.
Yeah, finger style, which I always left an impression on me, that you can get a really good slide sound if you just apply the right pressure. Rub-a-dub,
the people. It's always better sleeping in the dark.
But what a night! I mean, and then there was some quick ones that we visited. And I would go over to the L&A Lounge, and Sam was actually bartending there.
All right.
Contrary to what most people would think, that he was playing a lot in Chicago at that time, he really wasn't. There wasn't a lot of steady work. And he was often very frustrated in the morning at breakfast, trying to call a club and get something lined up. And I'd see his face. I'd see him getting really perturbed, and he'd anxious. And I'd see, was everything okay? And he'd say, well, I can't get work in this town. It was a really great experience knowing him. And after he did die, I went to the funeral, and went to the wake afterward. I started hanging out with Ernie Gatewood, who was the bass player on the second Magic Sam album. And I think some of it was Mac and some of it was Ernie Gatewood.
Yeah, right.
And Ernie introduced me to Eddie Clearwater and to both the guitar juniors at that time, Luther Johnson and also Lonnie Brooks. And Eddie Clearwater had a jam going over at the Flash Lounge. It was over, it was on the west side. I forget the exact address, but if I remember correct, it was somewhere off Pulaski. But I would go there, and James Magic was Sam's brother. James would take me to places.
Right.
And Leola Sam's widow would say, take Robert over to some of the clubs. And James would take me up. He was a very nice guy. James Magic was a very nice person. And Ernie Gatewood was great. I used to hang out at Ernie's house, and Ernie would play records for me. And we'd go over and hear Otis play. He was playing at the I think it was Freddie King's old spot, when Big Mojo had been playing with, and Luther Allison had played there before. I'm trying to remember the names of all these places. But anyway, I remember going to hear Otis one night, and he astounded me playing instrumental versions of soul tunes that were popular at the time. But anyway, I got to hear Otis, and it's pretty incredible. And then from there, I'd go hear other guys, and I came home after a number of visits like that, and I would model. I said, I'm going to model my own band like that. And I started finding guys I could play with, and first I'd have to sit them down and say, this is the record here, West Side Soul. These are the cuts that we're going to play. And you have to figure out what's going on with the drums here and the bass player. And I think at the time I had a few different guys. It was Dave Walker, a good friend of mine who unfortunately passed away some years ago. And I had a couple of the drummers, Henry Dennis was a young guy that was pretty cool drummer. And later on it changed, But at first I was practicing in a friend of mine's basement, Jock Haight. And his mom had a basement, and I would go in there and I'd try to model my little, my version of what Magic Sam was doing. And of course I'd mix in some of the Jimmy Dawkins. But at first I was almost like a little Magic Sam clone. I mean, I had, by then some of the stuff that had been released, like his Cobra stuff, which were done in the 50s. And I found that harder to play, like, in some ways, because it was a lot of fast picking that was very staccato.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out how the heck he was getting that kind of tone, and the shifting tonalities, and it's just a lot of notes that seemed so fast, played very quickly, staccato style. So anyway, I would stick more to the West Side Soul things as best I could.
Yeah,
but I would do like 21 Days in Jail, and Easy Baby, All Your Love, stuff like that. And I try to mix it up. But most of my repertoire was built on what my interpretation of what Sam had been doing. And I even had a little lip goatee here. I had a couple of sort of band lawn shirts that I thought sort of looked like his. And, I was so enamored of him. I really wanted to be sort of a Washington version of him, I guess. And, also, you have to remember too, it was at a time when most of my friends were really enamored with Jimi Hendrix and Clapton, and I wanted to be my own person more. I wanted to have my own guitar identity, I think, And it was important to me at that age to have something different.
Yeah,
You know?
and I think with you mixing the rhythm and lead guitar from Sam's band, a 2-guitar band sometimes, into
Yeah.
a 1-guitar style, you really did create your own thing.
Well, I think it did. I really believe that some of these West Side players seem to be doing more chording at that time than even a lot of the players like Clapton and even Mike Bloomfield. I don't remember him playing quite as many of those shifting chord
Sure.
lead things as much. And then I love those guys. I thought they were all incredible. But I really thought Sam had another way to, you know, what they call it, you know, the mouse hole.
Oh, no doubt.
A lot of things came back to me. And in particular, what he had told me, I asked him, I said, how do I become a good guitar player? He said, listen to as many guys and listen to as many styles as possible. And he said, listen. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, listen to, like, you know, listen to soul music, you know, listen to country music, listen to rock and roll, listen to classics. Yeah, like I said, the liner notes, I thought he meant Bach or something. I didn't. But he basically said, and then he sort of said, listen to everything, you know. The only official thing he ever really showed me, if it could be even called official, was I asked him to show me how to play the boogie. Now, when I was starting out, I sometimes got him confused. I was referring to looking good. I wanted him to show me how he did that, you know. But I think he said the boogie, I might have said the boogie, he just went like this. He just sort of flapped his hands, you know, I mean, it really does, like, you know. And that's all I remember him ever really showing me. He said, oh, it goes like that, you know. Now, he might have been doing something more, you know. Which, like, if you listen to a lot of stuff, that's what he's doing sometimes. I also had Joe Young on the recording on West Side Soul, so it was confusing. And that original mix on West Side Soul was I believe, a mono mix. Sometimes it's very hard on the original vinyl to differentiate what Sam is playing on low bass line stuff and what Joe Young was doing. I had to approximate it for many years, believe it or not, and then finally, I pretty much was close when I came out in newer versions and stuff. I hear it and I went, oh my gosh, I was right all along. You know?
Yeah.
And I could figure out what Joe was doing and what Sam was doing. And the funny part was that Sam live actually could do so much. He would play a bass line sometimes, you know, while singing. And I always went, geez, how the heck can anybody pull that off? And I tried to do that, and I worked hard at it, and I kept doing that, you know. And I think West Side Soul was the most captivating record, probably the most influential record for me.
Sure.
And it's still a piece I refer back to, even at my age now. I'll be 60 very soon, and I still refer back to it as a reference point. And it's always a measuring stick for the kind of progress that I hope I've made, you know. And of course, I include many more influences. I mean, I grew up with a lot of stuff. I grew up in Washington, which had bluegrass. You had Link Ray on television. You had all kinds of stuff. And the 60s, 50s, 60s radio was a gold mine for a kid because there was so much stuff. You know, Porter Wagner and, you know, Buck Owens, all these guys. And we loved James Burton. We always thought he was amazing. And when we heard Glenn Campbell, and we see him on TV, you know, and we just said, or the Yardbirds, Jeff Beck. I remember when we saw them, it was just guitar heaven back in those days. I remember it just seemed like the guitar was everywhere. And to us, it was.